So I want you to take a step back in time and imagine it is April 14th, 1865. The war is over. You have come to the White House and Mrs. Lincoln is coming to speak to you. Please stand and welcome the First Lady, Mary Todd Lincoln. I will escort her in.
Thank you, and you may be seated. Isn't the White House just beautiful? Oh, you know, Mr. Lincoln and I, we've been here about 4 years, and we're looking forward to 4 more years. And it's just such a big house, much larger than the house I was born in Lexington, Kentucky. We had a big house down there, but Mom and Daddy had 7 children. I was the second child, but his sister Elizabeth was older, and well, you know, I was Mom and Daddy's favorite though. Oh yeah, and I said, Mama used to rock me and hold me. She called me her little Mary Ann. That wasn't until we got another baby, and you know, they took my middle name Ann and they gave it to her, and then I just plain old Mary. Well, we had a good time there. I remember it was the 3rd of July. I got so excited. Sister Elizabeth and I, we went up to bed, got up there just a little while. Daddy came up and he said, Mary, you and Sister are going to have to go next door and stay all night with Grandma Parker. And I said, oh, Daddy, now tomorrow's the 4th of July, and there's going to be parades and bands and all kinds of candy and everything, and we'll be real quiet. And he said, oh, Mama's not feeling well. You go over to stay all night with Grandma Parker. So we got up and went over, and he said, now I'll come get you in the morning. So we got up the next morning, and Daddy didn't come. And I got tired of waiting, and I said, Grandma, I think I'll go home and see my daddy. He said, now, Mary, Daddy said he'd come and get you after a while. So after a while, when Daddy came, and he said, well, girls, you can go home now. And so we got just about the door, and I heard this funny noise. And I said, what's that? And they said, oh, you got a new baby brother, George. I said, oh, I want to see George. So I went in to see George, and I said, I want to see Mama. And they said, well, you can't see Mama. I said, Mama died this morning. And oh, I got so upset, and things just went round and round, and people came, and the pastor came, and the neighbors and all the relatives, and we hardly knew what was happening, and they was there for a few days, and then they took Mama away, and then we just had to do without Mama. But Anne Marie, she came to live with us and help us, because we needed a lot of help with that baby, you know. And then we had Mammy Sally and Patty and then Nelson and all the colored folks, and so we did all right. And you know, in about a year, that little George, he just up padding around, just doing as good. But one day Daddy came in and he said, children, we're getting a new mama at this house. I said, oh, Daddy, we're getting along fine. We don't need no new mama here. And he said, oh, she's real nice. I'm going to go get her in the morning, and I'm going to bring her by and let you meet her. So he got up next morning, and then said, you get up and you get on one of your pretty dresses, and I do want you to meet her. So I got up and got all dressed up and waited for Daddy and waited for Daddy, and Daddy didn't come. And finally I got tired of waiting, and I went out and played in the mud. Then Daddy came. Oh my! And I looked at that new mama, and she looked at me, and I knew I didn't think I'd like her, and I didn't think she'd like me, and she didn't like anything I did. Oh, she just did. There, I put salt in her coffee one morning. She didn't like that either. We didn't get along, so Daddy said, well, Mary, I think you'll be going to school. Well, that was fine with me, yeah, because first thing you knew, there was a new baby at that house. Oh, and then a new baby, another new baby. And then Daddy said, now, you go to school. And he said, remember the schoolmaster said 5 o'clock, first class. Well, that didn't bother me. I always did like get up early. So I started school, and did I ever learn? Oh, I just passed everybody up in the whole class, and they gave me a lot more things to do. And when I finished that school, I still wasn't getting along with that new mama. And so Daddy said, Mary, I think you'll be going to the big school. You're going to go live with Sister Elizabeth. Now, Sister Elizabeth had lived in Springfield. She had married Ninian Edwards, and Sister Elizabeth's husband's father had been governor of Illinois, and they lived up there in Springfield in a big mansion. And so he said, now I'm going to buy you a lot of new clothes, because he said, all those young men up there in the Senate and the House and the new government, and I think they're coming courting. Well, he got me a lot of new clothes, and I moved up there with Sister Elizabeth, and just got up there, and sure enough, the fellas started coming. Oh, first there was Joshua Speed, and he came, and then there was that little short fella, Stephen A. Douglas. Oh, he came several times. I kind of liked him. And then I met Mr. Lincoln. People didn't call him Abe or Abraham. They called him Mr. Lincoln. And to me today, he is still my Mr. Lincoln. Well, we had a few ups and downs and all, but finally we were married, and we lived in a little apartment up over a store, and we were there, and about a year our first baby boy came. His Robert. Oh, he was a cute little fellow, but he was a crybaby. He just cried and cried, and we had to move, and so we moved to get away from the neighbors fussing about him crying. So we were out, and then later Mr. Lincoln, he bought a house on 8th and Jackson, and we moved down there, and we were just there for a little while. We got our second baby, and that was Eddie. Eddie was such a good baby. He was just so good. But when we had Eddie, Robert started running off. I would be busy with little Eddie in the house, and I would look up, and Robert would be gone, and I'd say, Robert. Oh, I'd go outside, and I'd holler, Robert. Oh, I just couldn't find him, and I'd have to go back inside. And after a while, one of the neighbors would probably would bring him home, and he'd look at me, and I'd say to him, Robert, look at me if I talk to you. And if you have a child, and you say, look at me when I talk to you, and you can't tell if they're looking at you or not, it's time to do something. So we had an operation on Robert's eyes till they weren't crossed anymore, and then he did real well, and he went off to school and did fine. Well, we had quite a time with those boys. They just took most of my time. Well, Mr. Lincoln came in one day, and he said, Mother, I'm going to run against Stephen A. Douglas for the Senate seat. He said, I'm going to run against him and beat him. Well, I started baking cookies and having parties, and then Mr. Lincoln was going on the route all the way, and he was about campaigning, and that he had 7 major debates in Illinois, and the last one was at Alton, and that's the only one I got to attend because I was so busy with the boys. But that little Miss Douglas, she trips all over the state and attended every one of them with her husband. But my husband won every debate. Mr. Lincoln won every debate. He lost the election, but then he won every debate. But the Republicans had noticed him, and then they nominated him for the presidency. Oh my. And then little Eddie got sick, and I got so upset, and then little Eddie got sick, and I said, oh, we've got to get the doctors here again. And the doctor said, well, hold him and keep him, and he'll be okay. And we did. We held him and rocked him. 52 days we held that baby, and then Eddie died. And I collapsed, and they took me to my room. Mr. Lincoln had to walk behind the little white casket by himself because I was too ill to attend the funeral. But we had a rough time the rest of that year, but then just before Thanksgiving we got another baby boy, and that was William. We called him. And then before we knew it, there was another baby there. Mr. Lincoln looked at him, and he said, well, he's no bigger than a tadpole. And we named him, and we called him Taddy. And Taddy was a rascal. Oh my, he did so many things. Why, he took Willie's pet turtle, tied string around his neck, and tied it up in the shed. Oh, honey. And Willie came home, and he said, oh, Mama, my turtle's dead. And Taddy did it. And he said, but can I take it upstairs to my bedroom for just one night? And I said, oh, no, dead turtle's coming in my house. But Mr. Lincoln came home and he said, oh, now, Mother, it's not going to hurt for the turtle to be up there one night. So up goes the turtle. Got up the next morning, and everybody was there watching. And everything was just fine, and the turtle was okay. It hadn't hurt it at all. Everybody was just so happy. Oh, except Taddy, and he wanted to hang him again. Well, we had a time with those boys. Oh my. And a few days ago, Mr. Lincoln came in and he said, Mother, the war is over. The boys are going home. And so when we got married and got started to go to the White House, Mr. Lincoln and I had never been in the White House, and I got so excited because I would be the first woman to be the first lady of the White House, and my children would be the first children to live in the White House, because all the other presidents either had no children or their children were grown. So Tad and Willie were going to live in the White House. And you know, Mr. President Buchanan, he said, now tomorrow morning the Lincolns may come and see the inside of the White House. And I got so excited, and we got over there and went inside. Oh, I wish you'd have seen the inside of this White House. That's the biggest mess I ever saw. That bachelor president, James Buchanan, didn't know how to decorate a White House at all. Oh, I had to have new chairs. I had to have all new furniture. My little Taddy was just jumping up and down one of the chairs one day and went right through the bottom of it. Well, I couldn't have all that old furniture there, and then I hurt him. So I had a new table and new tablecloth and it looked the whole house was redone. Mr. Lincoln said, Mother, I think you better have your party and have some of your friends come and see what a good job you've done. So the people came. Oh, I had my new table and a new tablecloth. Even made Mr. Lincoln's favorite cake, that white cake with sliced almonds, but no frosting. Oh no, Mr. Lincoln, he didn't know huff and puff and fluff on my cake, just plain, please. And so just as we were there. I even hired a lady to sing, and just as she started to sing, opened the doors, and in came Taddy with a goat pulling one of the White House chairs on its side, and swoosh, it went right through my party, hit the table. Oh, things went flying everywhere. The cake went upside down. The lady who was singing, she lost her voice and couldn't speak for the rest of the day. Oh, I talked to Mr. Lincoln later. I said, Mr. Lincoln, Taddy ruined my whole party. And he said, oh, now, Mother. He always called me Mother after the babies came. He said, now, Mother, you know, there's a war going on, and we don't know what's going on. I said, oh, Mr. Lincoln, I know the war's going on. It's the North against the South. The South thinks I'm a spy for the North, and the South thinks I'm a spy for the North, and the North thinks I'm a spy for the South. We're out here on the line, and we don't know who to trust. I fear for you. I fear for Tad and Willie. I fear for myself. Oh, yes, Mr. Lincoln, I know there's a war on. And he said, Mother, will you please calm down. It'll be all right. Well, the wars just raged on and on. And this morning, Mr. Lincoln came in and he said, Mother, the war is over. The boys are going home. But he said, there's one thing that bothers me. I dreamed the other night that I was awakened by crying and weeping in the White House. And I rose from my bed and I walked to the room, and there were soldiers were at a coffin. And I said, who's dead in the White House? And they said, the president, sir. He was felled by an assassin's bullet. And he said, he is felled by the assassin's bullet. And then he saw how upset I got. I got so very upset. And he said, Mother, I shall never mention it again. But remember, it's only a dream. And I said, oh yes, it's just a dream, you know. So when Mr. Lincoln came in this morning, he said, Mother, you know, we're going to go to the theater tonight. We're going to see our American cousin. And he said, but I thought maybe you'd like to go for a chariot ride this afternoon. And so I said, oh, that would be lovely. And so we went for a ride through the country, and we came back, and I got just about back to the White House, and I had this feeling of a terrible headache coming on, and I said, oh, Mr. Lincoln, maybe we shouldn't go to the theater tonight. Maybe we should stay home. And he said, now, Mother, it's been announced that we, the President and Mrs. Lincoln, and Major Rathbone and his fiancée, Clara Harris, will be there, and we won't disappoint the people. But when we get back to the White House, you have some tea and rest a while, and you'll feel better. And so I came back and rested a while and had some tea and felt better. And then you come by, and we've had this nice visit, and I'm going to be ready to go to the theater with the president tonight, and I shall not disappoint him. I'll sit in this presidential box and watch the play and visit with my Mr. Lincoln. Well, Mr. Lincoln came, and we went to the theater. The play had already begun, but it ceased, and we were seated up in the presidential box, and then the play resumed. And in the third act of the play, John Wilkes Booth, a young actor, walked up the steps, opened the door, and fired one shot into the head of Abraham Lincoln, his head falling over toward the lap of his beloved wife. And she was later heard say, "Have I also given my husband in this horrible war?" The president was taken across the street to the Peterson house where he lay all night, and at 7:22 the next morning, Secretary of State sent and made a statement, "Now he belongs to the ages." The body of the president was taken across to the White House. They asked Mary about funeral arrangements, and she said Chicago or New York. And it wasn't until they told her that they would also take the body of her little Willie back that they consented. She consented for Springfield, Illinois, to be the final resting place. For then she knew they would also bring the body of little Eddie and let him rest with them. Funeral arrangements are made. 11 funerals would be held along the way. And as they arrived in Springfield, Mary, she and Tad stayed at the White House for 40 days after the assassination. And then they went to Chicago. They were in Chicago for a while, and she and Tad went to Europe. They were in Europe. Tad becomes ill. They come home, and her beloved Tad falls very ill and dies. Mary is now alone, as she's estranged from her only son, Robert. Robert does not like the way she is spending her money, so he has her committed to an insane institution. She spends her time there and then is paroled out into the custody of Sister Elizabeth in Springfield. With her, she will bring her 63 trunks representing her 63 years of life, and she will come and stay with Sister Elizabeth. And on a hot day in July, Mary Lincoln lies gravely ill. She is almost blind, weighs less than 100 pounds. She looks across the room, and there she notices a spot on the floor. She looked at the spot, and she envisions a young woman standing on that spot. The young woman standing beside a tall young lawyer who's holding a ring. Engraved on the ring are the words, "Love is eternal." Mary Lincoln looks again, and then she remembers. Her bed is but a few feet from the spot, the very spot where she stood almost 40 years ago and became Mrs. Abraham Lincoln. She smiles, closes her eyes, joins her beloved husband, her baby Eddie, her precious Willie, and her blessed Tad. Together, they shall wait for Robert. Funeral arrangements are made. The casket resting near the spot where she was married. And as the hundreds of people from around the world come to say their goodbyes, they see the pale face, the folded hands, the ring, yes, the ring that would be buried with her. And as they're saying their goodbyes, historians are polishing their pens, they're beginning to write. They write about Mary Todd, the little girl in Lexington. Mary Todd, the young lady in Springfield. Mary Lincoln, the wife and mother. Mary Lincoln, the first lady. And Mary Lincoln, the grieving widow. Unkind words are written, sad words are written, harsh words are written, cruel words are written. Words like spy, insane, crazy, lunatic, Southern sympathizer. History is not kind to Mary Lincoln. But the best of Mary Lincoln is yet to come. Justice shall be served. Mary Lincoln shall rest in peace. For a few nights ago, I picked up my pen and I began to write. Mary Todd Lincoln, chosen of God to be the beloved wife of the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. Thank you. from Lexington's rich people. Her father was a politician, and was quite wealthy. He married the second time, and they had 9 children, and so she had a lot of brothers and sisters.
So how much time did you put into research to find all of this information?
Till I could do this?
Mhm.
96 years. All my life. I started, my husband started doing Lincoln when he was teaching at the university in 1992, full face of whiskers. And so I suggested he shave off the mustache, and there was Lincoln. And so he started, and I said, now I will go with you, I will support you. I'm not a speech teacher. My husband taught speech and rhetoric and public address and history. And so he said, okay. Well, I came home from school one day, and he had checked out 11 books about Mary Lincoln and said, now read. So I started reading, and by the time I finished, well, you know, I had a 4-minute speech I could give about Mary Lincoln. Well, it kind of grew, and I started then in about a year, and I started, so for 30 years, my husband and I traveled the United States and Hawaii with the Lincoln programs. Sometimes the last time we were in Texas, we were down in Dallas. They loved us there. We had to get home. A fellow had passed away. My husband was an ordained minister too, and they called, and he was to officiate at a funeral. We had to come home, and but in 8 days in Dallas, we had 15 performances, from colleges to schools to nursing home, retirement homes, to Civil War roundtables and different things. It was a good life. It was an excellent life.